Your GCSE chemistry is coming up very, very soon, and today we're going to be giving you tips on how to get a 9 or an A star, whatever you call it, the top grades or the grades that you want. I'm going to be giving you 5 tips which have helped me get 9 for all my sciences, and these are things which I found very helpful not only for GCSEs but good preparation for what you can do with A levels as well. So I'm going to share these tips with you. Today we're just going to be focusing a bit more on chemistry, just because I think that chemistry is an easier way to start. Then you go on one side, you have bio, and physics on the other side. Chemistry is kind of the in-between of the two. There's some biological aspects to chemistry, and then of course there's the equation aspects of physics, which is found in chemistry as well. So we'll be making those videos in the future, and of course if you want them or want any other guides to get a 9 in the subject, then let me know in the comments below and I'll happily make one of these short guides for you. But today we're going to be going over 5 key tips of making mind maps, highlighting areas you don't know, really finding those weaknesses and zooming in on those weaknesses, doing those topics, and also kind of doing practice papers. So we're going them in depth, and hopefully you would have a better understanding of how to get good marks in your chemistry. So let's first start off with the first tip, which is make mind maps of topics. And I think that this is the very best way to start off any revision. Normally, when you go through lessons, teachers give you worksheets, teachers give you notes, teachers give you PowerPoints, and then it's an absolute mess. I don't have my folders because I gave them all to my friends who are doing GCSE right now. However, I remembered I had a massive folder filled with random files, absolute mess. I had the specs, but I really didn't know what on earth was in there. I didn't know where the specs was. I don't know what worksheet matched what spec point. And I'm sure you guys felt the same. If you felt the same and had an absolutely messy folder for your topics, and let me know in the comments and just say how annoying it absolutely is. I felt greatly irritated by that, and I'm sure there are people out there who feel irritated by that as well. So I think making mind maps is so important, because you then realize that after having a folder of loads and loads of paper, you start going through the specs, because we all have specs. It's either the teachers give you or you could just Google it. You see the spec and then you look at it and you're like, well, actually there is way less than a massive chunk of paper that you need to know. Summarize it, get the key points from each of the specs, then put it into the bullet points. You have those clear bullet points and write a note. You could do mind map if you like, or do like a small book with each of the specs, then do a line and say, well, part of this spec gives you this information. I only need to know something about a distillation or whatever it is, or about, honestly, my chem knowledge actually has been dropping significantly, but you know, like, I need a certain equation for this bullet point. That's all I need. Tick, tick, tick. 3 worksheets, which was on one part of the spec, now goes into 2 lines of paper showing one key concept. And you notice very soon that an entire stack of worksheets gets reduced to 5 or 6 mind maps, and that's just so much easier. And then it becomes less daunting for you, because when you're looking at your folder, you're very afraid because there's a massive chunk of worksheets and random notes here or there. But when you summarize it and you're going through the revision, you now know exactly where to learn and what you actually need to know, instead of just a massive chunk of worksheets. And that's really the first note that I will give you. The second note that I'll give you is to really highlight the areas you do not know. For example, well, you might be going through your worksheet, you're making your mind map, and you're like, well, this topic, this spec is so easy. Then you don't need to look at it again. But odds are we are 1 month away from our exams, 2 months away for exams, depending on what it is. If you know something by the back of your hand right now, you'll probably be more confident then. But then if you go through something and you really don't know, then you really need to focus it. So you want to find the areas that you do not know, highlight the areas where you aren't really comfortable with, and then really focus on those areas, because there are going to be areas which you're really confident in for no reason at all. I'm going through my math right now, and for some reason, some topics I'm really good at, and some topics I'm absolutely trash at. And then that's the same for everyone. Back in the past, I was doing my chemistries. I went through a few of the topics. I was like, yeah, that's easy. But then I went to another ones. I'm like, I genuinely don't know anything about this. So figure out those topics very well, and then highlight the ones where you don't want. There's a thing in our school, and I'm sure you guys interacted with before, called a red, amber, green system. So you put red for the things you really don't know, amber for the things that, I go over this, it seems kind of familiar, but I don't really know it as well. And then green is, yep, I got this from the back of the hand. I'm writing these notes, and it's not only from the textbook, it's not only from the notes that my teachers gave me, but just from memory, I already know a lot about this bullet point. Then put a green on that, then you don't need to focus on that until the very end when we're doing past papers, which I will be suggesting at the very end. So that's kind of how you find the weaknesses, and that's a very important thing. So going through each of the specs by making mind maps and then testing yourself, do I know this part very well, is a really helpful way for understanding what on the spec do I know and what on the spec do I not know. If you're enjoying this video so far, then make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It's a very new channel, and if you want more tips about how to get good marks in your IGCSEs, your A-levels, or even how to get into the universities of your dreams, then make sure you subscribe. Now, of course, let's carry on and talk about finding specific topic questions. And this ties in later to the next point, which is do it and repeat. There are things like Save My Exams and other websites online which gives you topic-specific questions, and these are so valuable. Because at this point, you've already made your mind. At this point, you've already gone through the topics and said, well, on the specification, these are the areas which I do not know. Well, what you can do there then is, well, start figuring out those topics and going online and saying, well, maybe I don't know about some certain method of in chemistry, or I don't know some certain aspect here, right? You don't know that? Well, then go online, Google that spec point, and then you can find loads of topic questions on that, and it's really, really helpful. Save My Exams is such a good resource for me. And then they also provide mark schemes, so that is very helpful. So constantly do those questions. Drill them until you know what it is by the back of your hand. Then you could go back to your spec and then say, well, that is good, that is a tick. That could go from red to a green. And then after that goes to the fourth point, well, do and repeat them and learn from the mark scheme. Because the mark scheme is just so, so useful. Science is unfortunately one of those things, or fortunately one of those things, where you can grind. You realize that there may be so many different questions, but at the end of the day, they're asking for the exact same thing. I mean, it's more in the case for physics when they have those long answers, but there really are only a few spec points. If you take them off, the teacher looks at the indicative content, takes off those few points, gives you the marks, and then that's it. The moment you start learning what exactly things do you have to say, it makes your life way, way easier. And the final thing is do exam practice. You've gone over the things you really don't know. You've made those reds to greens. You've made those yellows into greens. You become more familiar with the topic. Then start doing time practice. It's one thing knowing all the information, but if you can't put it onto the paper on the right time, well, then you're going to face significant problems. And that's something that I faced significantly as well. So it's very important to get that timing, to understand the different time conditions that you're under. And once again, go over them. And then after that, by doing those practices, then you might be understanding, well, okay, actually, I don't know this topic. And then I go back to research it more. I don't know this area. I need to do more on that. Or I'm really good on this area. I can move on from that. So by doing that timed exam, you want to start doing this 2 weeks and not 3 weeks before your exams, or even just the week before you start understanding what areas you need to focus on. It really depends on your schedule, but it is one of those things where you really want to do time exams. You don't want to go into the test without any backing, and that's really a horrible thing. Now, finally, bonus tip for you. Get an extra sheet of paper, get an extra sheet of information, and write all the equations you need to know and all the bullet points which were originally read onto. And then what I then want you to do is to take that specific sheet of paper, which is the accumulation of all the things you did not know. So in the first place, I said make all the green mind maps, right? I said make all the mind maps of the specs, no matter whether you like it, you're good at it, or you're not good at it. Now, get things which you knew you weren't good at before, and then write them down onto a piece of paper, write the information there, and just bring that red piece of paper or that small specific form of information, that concentrated information of what you were unfamiliar with and the formula that you need to know into the exam. And then when you do that, what it then says is, well, the moment before you go into the exam, you're not going to be able to go through all your mind maps. So mind maps are nice to bring you up to this point to revise, to understand different concepts. But the moment before you get into the exam, you want to go back to the things which you were less familiar with, the things which were mainly short-term memory instead of long-term memory. Give yourself that recall before you sit into the exam. Get that small sheet of paper and then read it, understand it, learn it on the way to the exam, or even not just at the exam or the day of the exam. Do that and then sit the exam, and you will be confident and good to go. That's my tips for how to get a 9 in chemistry. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you have any ideas you've done chemistry before, then let me know your thoughts, your tips and tricks that helped you a lot in the comments below, and let's help and build the community together. Stay safe, my friends. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. It really means a lot to me, and it really helps the channel grow. See you soon. Thank you for watching, and goodbye, my friends. I'll see you next one.